be in a Welcome. We are on air, and I want to say hello to those beautiful faces on the screen and all of our amazing guests who are listening live in all of our different social media platforms are also listening later. So thank you for enjoying this wonderful hour with us. We are gathered for our third tea with Miss G. I've got my tea. I've got some of the most incredible guests who are going to help us bring to life a very lively conversation about neurodiversity. And I'm so excited to gather you in this space. And what I'd love to do is introduce our guests. We are coming from different cities, states, and time zones. And I want to start with you, CarolAnn Edscorn. You are joining us from Savannah, Georgia. So welcome to our show.
Thank you.
Thrilled to have you. Sitting beside her is her service dog, Nyla. And if you see a tail wag or you hear her speaking to us, she is an Ethiopian queen. So I love that your sweet service dog is right beside you, prepared to be a part of this program. Moving on to my screen, we're going to go all the way to Long Island, New York. And I want to say hello to the ever so wonderful, brilliant Nancy Rodriguez. Hi, Nancy.
Hello.
Welcome. Love that smile. It is lighting up my screen. And we're going to go to the south to Memphis, Tennessee, the newlywed student author extraordinaire, Jayden Braddock. Hi, Jayden. Is your wonderful new wife, is she watching the show?
Missed you guys.
Is your wonderful wife
Can you repeat
watching
that?
the show?
Oh yeah, she's definitely going to watch this. I'm going to send her this immediately as soon as it's over.
Oh, I know that Jayden is one of our amazing student authors from our latest book, Dear Freedom Writer. And you were the big brother for all
Yes.
of those 50 student authors. And they're going to be so excited that you are only not only engaged, but you're now married. So that's going to be a celebration when we all get together again. Hello, Megan Abruzzo from Long Island North is also saying hello and so glad to be here. So why we are gathered is in the month of March, as we look towards Autism Awareness Month in the month of April, I want to be ahead of the conversation as we get to that special time where educators and parents and students start having conversations. I want to be ahead of that curve. And so we are gathered here to talk about personal experiences. We're here to talk about parental experiences. And we're also here to talk about how we can work within our jobs and our communities with people who are neurodivergent. So I want to start with you, CarolAnn, because I met you at a conference and you said that you saw light and you saw sunflowers. And I immediately
You remember that?
remember that. I don't forget anything. We met in Massachusetts, and you said that you saw something that was bright. You did not know that my father had passed. You did not know that my dad had passed. At that moment, I was near a field of sunflowers. And suddenly I'm meeting a stranger and we're both crying. And I knew that your beautiful being was so beautiful that I needed to be in your life for the rest of my life. So tell me about when I say your beautiful brain as a child, do people refer to the way you see and process as beautiful?
Until recently, Erin. When I was much younger, both childhood and adolescence and well into my 20s, if I did something that was off the normal path, shall we say, in terms of responses, facial expressions, word choices, uh, uh, I got labeled pretty quick as bizarre or weird, and some other not so nice adjectives. And I like very seldom had friends
Mm.
until fairly well. Then I met Chris, and he married me, so I've got one friend.
And you got a whole freedom writer family, the
Yeah,
that we've made. Um, what I am sad about is the word bizarre and normal. I think that we as a society often label, and when those labels aren't positive, I can't imagine as a schoolgirl being labeled anything that wasn't positive. Because in the Freedom Rider world, CarolAnn, we were so excited to crown you our queen. We literally gave you a crown. All the hot boys, tell your husband, all the handsome men lined up to dance with you as our queen. You were the most popular girl in the room. But I can't imagine not having that popularity as a schoolgirl. What is it like when you are labeled as a schoolgirl?
I really don't know how to respond to that because I when I learned to finally actually read, which kind of came together in sixth grade, uh, I suddenly had friends in books.
Mm.
Wrinkle in Time, Johnny Tremaine, The Witch at Blackbird Pond, just to name a few. But I was always reading, which actually made some people angrier at me. Get your nose out of the book, get real, whatever. Um, and then I would get in trouble because I would ask, well, what is real? And it was a genuine question to me. I was not being a smartass. I'm kind of a dumbass, not a smartass. But people get angry, in my humble opinion, at some of the silliest things ever.
Mm.
And to me, it's like sometimes people just really want to know. And if you don't come from a certain lifestyle, like when I moved into the city, like DC, Pittsburgh, not Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, New York, and I would be in what everybody called the bad part of town. Oh, Miss CarolAnn, you don't want to be there. But let me tell you, those dangerous young black men were my best friends. They were my guards. They took care of me. I had no fear on the streets of the north side of Washington, D.C. And the thing is that the word friend has been so misused and abused, maybe. You know, you look at somebody and smile, and suddenly you're friends, but you're not. I used to think that was the case. I smiled at somebody, and we were friends, but we weren't. And it took me a long time to be able to read body language and facial expressions to give me the clues that I was in the wrong place and time with these people who said they were my friends, but who were talking behind my back and insulting me and dragging me down. Uh, I'm so blessed to have. When I came to Long Beach, it was the weekend after Thanksgiving. It was only like 3 weeks after we met, and I just will never forget you running up and says, "You want to come to Long Beach with us?" And I called my husband. And I said, "Honey, I'm going to Long Beach in 2 weeks." And he goes, "What?" And that's just how fast the universe put us together and sent us on our way together. And so, like, we might not talk for a very long time. I try to text once in a while. Henry keeps me on top of that. I love my Henry. But he's only an hour away, and I don't see him much. And Forrest is just in Atlanta. That's 3.5 hours, and I don't see him much either. I don't know where Robert Waller went to. He got sick. And I mean, it's hard. I don't want to look people up sometimes because sometimes they're gone.
Mm. You know,
Uh,
I think for those that are listening, the names that you just said were some of the wonderful, and they were all men, all those handsome men that
oh
you
dear.
We're
And I
blessed.
didn't even mention Chris Perez.
And our Dan Sackheim. So
Oh, Dan, I know. Yes, I'm still with Dan.
Carolyn came into our life, and like I said, there was a line around the building. All these wonderful educators
Yeah,
wanted to dance with her. All these wonderful educators.
that's your fault.
I know. We were making up for lost time. And I think in
That's
this
true.
manner in which I met and fell in love with you is the same manner in which I met and fell in love with Jayden, because Jayden's mother, a beloved freedom writer teacher, was coming to Long Beach in the same way that you did, CarolAnn, and she was sadly stuffed her sweet son in her hotel room while she was with freedom writer teachers day and night. And we said, please bring him downstairs, bring him into the room. We need Jayden to be a part of this. In the same way, CarolAnn, that you beautifully wrote your story in our book, Teaching Hope, about your journey. Jayden went on to be welcome into our family, and then Jayden was also able to write his story in Dear Freedom Writer. So, Jayden, you walked through this messy chaos with freedom writers and freedom writer teachers, and we immediately immersed you into this chaotic world. What did that feel like to suddenly have people wanting to say hello, wanting to be your friend, wanting to give you hugs? Was it overwhelming, or was it the comfort that you needed?
And mostly just took a while to adjust and to just believe that this would be a family that would last forever and that it wouldn't just be a temporary thing for a season, or that they wouldn't just drop me over the slightest inconvenience. That kind of love that you would have for your own blood, for your own mother, for your own grandmother, that you would have for anyone that's in your direct family, we all have that for each other, that same love, that same drive. So
Mm.
to have that, to experience that when I was 17, when I was 16, no, I was 16. So to experience that at 16, when most people really don't even get to experience that at all, but if they do, it's more towards the later end of their life. It just kind of took me all at once, and for it to all happen at once in that same week while we were there in Long Beach in 2019, it was just hard to process for me at the time and to really appreciate the moment, because I just kept thinking in the back of my head of that I would have to go home and that I would have to leave the family, and that I would not get to have this where I am all the time at home at Gulf Shores at the time.
Mm.
So
You know, Jayden, when CarolAnn was talking about her friends being in books, I saw you nod. And I love that in the story that you wrote in Dear Freedom Writer, you actually compare friendship to a book, the Wimpy Kids series, and in the story that you wrote in Dear Freedom Writer, you had a very clever title for your story. What did you call your story? I know it, but I want the world to hear what you named your story in Dear Freedom Writer.
some people don't believe me when I tell them, but it's Asperger's, but it's not spelled the normal how it should be. It's actually the profane way, the profane joking way that you, in the back of your mind, that you want to say that you think it is. But there's also a part of your head that's like, nah, it can't actually be that. But that's what my story is titled. In the back of your head, what you think when you hear Asperger's, that's actually what my story is titled.
And I loved that it was ASS burgers, BURGES. So booty cheeks and a little treat. And in your story, just like our sweet CarolAnn, friendships were hard for you in those elementary and middle school years. Did you find that kids were cruel? Did you find, as CarolAnn said, there was there was labels, and maybe you didn't have people as sincere to your face when they smiled as they needed to be in their heart as well?
It mostly just came down to I always saw myself as the one that was always to the side, never with the main group of kids. I always considered them, normal and what you would expect when you go to the school and you would expect to see a normal kid. I expected everyone else to be that way and for me to kind of be this awkward, abnormal person in the classroom. And that's how I felt for the longest time. And it was always difficult for me to gravitate towards people because all I could think about was just how can I connect with people and how can I read social cues? And it was hard for me to really appreciate the ones that were there for me because I couldn't understand social cues. So I would gravitate towards the regular, normal, popular kids, but I didn't know they were actually making fun of me. And so I kind of drove away what could have been my actual friends in elementary school because I just didn't really know. And so as I got older, it kind of got more, the social cues kind of got more noticeable as I got older, especially in high school, and knowing and appreciating true allies and true friends. So I will say one thing: when I was younger, I really didn't appreciate and value them as much as I probably should have, and held them close to me.
I want to share with you both, CarolAnn and Jayden, and I think Nancy, you'll understand the social cues that I'm feeling, listening, and taking in what you're both saying. I have a lump in my throat. I have tears welling in my eyes. I have so much empathy in my heart. I want to hug both of you. I want to make up for lost time. And I'm sad as someone who started my career teaching the power of words. The words that both of you have gravitated to make me so sad. You both use this word normal, and I don't know what that means. What's normal? You both use words like bizarre and awkward. And I think those are social constructs that at some point, at some time, sadly, someone might have said those words to you. And I'm here to tell you that you are perfect in my eyes. You are perfectly imperfect. And I'm just really sad that some adult in the room didn't stand up for you, beside you. I'm sad that there wasn't someone in that class or on that bus or at that lunch table who would have laughter and said, I'm gonna step in. And I think that's what you do, Nancy. I think as a parent and as someone who works with neurodivergent students, you are vigilant. You are vigilant. And so when you were listening to both Jayden and CarolAnn, because you are a parent, you are an educator, you are at a school with like-minded folk, what is it like for you when you hear their journey? Do you too get that lump in your throat? Do you get the tears in your eyes? Do you want to jump in and give them a warm hug?
Absolutely. Just hearing them, I know what my daughter went through also. When you have a child with autism, a lot of emotions and layers come with it, and it's constantly evolving. And it begins with the uncertainty because you don't know what happens and what's going to happen to them. And then you get this strong protective instinct that you want. You want to just protect them and hover over them and put them in a bubble, which isn't good for them either. But then you often have to educate others and correct the misconceptions and push for your child or for these students to be understood and rather than judged.
I love that. So Nancy, as a parent, I'm so happy that Jayden's mom has a doctorate. She's in education. She's a dean of the College of Ed. So she, like you, is so fierce and protective. CarolAnn, I don't know about your parents, but did your parents understand as a child the way that beautiful brain of yours worked? No. And and as a child, did you understand? Did you need, as Jayden so eloquently said, an ally? Did you have an ally? Was there someone in your life that was your ally?
I went for walks in the woods and near the streams and in the hills by myself, even at 4 or 5 years old, which aggravated my parents even more um, early on. But as long as I had the stars at night, and I would wake up in the middle of the night and look out my window through the Venetian blinds, and I would read, like I said, but mostly I, I I'm taking a risk. Uh, I would go looking amongst the ferns and the rocks for the wee folk and other beings that I felt I knew were present. They might not have liked humans very much, so, but I was always looking for the fairies and the wee folk amongst the trees and the ferns and the stuff around our house. So, and further abroad, a lot further from the house. But no, actually, my mother died 4 years ago, but about 12 or 15 years ago, I brought the family to visit them. We were in New Hampshire, they lived in Rhode Island, and my mom apologized.
Oh,
My mom apologized and hugged me, and we were like, I don't know, 15 years ago. I don't know how old I am. I was in my 40s. So she was in her 60s, maybe almost 70, and she apologized. And I'm just like, I didn't even know that she was cognizant of the dissonance between us. That was cool. It was cool that she apologized.
wow. And I loved our other mom on the panel, Nancy. I love that as a mom, in earnest, your daughter comes first. Brianna comes first.
Yes.
So talk about that even to this day. She's brilliant. She's bold. She has a boyfriend, and as a mom, do you ever stop being the person who's the caregiver and the person who is knowing where she is at every moment? And does it ever lighten, or is that still a place that you are vigilant?
It comes in stages. She's 28 now. I have to let her go. So I do give her room. I don't want to know where she's at all the time. She goes to the boyfriend's house, you know. Yeah. So I have to, she's an adult. I have to. I'm not going to be around forever. I have to know that she can navigate this world without me here. So I have to let her be and let her try and navigate this world.
To you that we got from one of your sisters, a sister from another mister. It's from your sister up in Sequoia. And it's paraphrased, but she said, Nancy is a caregiver in the biggest and brightest way. Brianna, your daughter, is a beautiful, sweet, and successful young lady who had a mom behind her that provided love, patience, and support throughout her journey with autism. Those traits allow someone with autism or anyone struggling to know they are not in the struggle alone. So I wish, CarolAnn, in your formative years, before you got that apology, that you had a mom like Jayden did, a mom like Nancy who studied. And Nancy, I'm assuming you didn't know anything
Nothing.
about autism before your daughter was diagnosed. So as a parent, what did you have to learn to be that protective caregiver for Brianna?
Wow, you learn a whole new terminology. IEP, therapies, it's amazing what you learn, but you have no option. You learn about the Vinland exams, you learn, wow, state laws, regulations, medical stuff. It's amazing. The language, it's a whole other world. It really is.
I'm going to slow you down so we can go forward. So, for those that don't know what an IEP is, those in the educational world do, but that's a very important example. So, I want you to tell them what an IEP is and also what a 504 is. So, folks that don't know what these stand for, can you tell us and educate those that are listening to be more cognizant?
An IEP is an individualized educational plan, and it's devised by the IDA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Act. And with the IEP, it provides accommodations to the environment and modifications to the curriculum. But you have to fall within the IDEA's disabilities. There's like 13 to 15 in a list that they have. And it follows the student throughout the school. A 504 plan is not by the IDA, and it pertains to any disability. The big difference is it does accommodate the child's environment, but not the curriculum. And it follows that person throughout their life. That's the difference between the two.
I love that. Jayden, you had an IEP. And as a child, I know sometimes they would take you out of a class that you were in and maybe put you in another class. So as a child, did you understand some of these terms that Nancy just talked about? Did your mom or the school ever sit you down and say, this is what we're going to do with you during your academic day?
Well, I first heard the term IEP because a few of my teachers would tell me that I had an IEP, and that's why I was there doing the specific things that I was doing. That's why I was being taken out of the classroom. That's why I was given accommodations. That's why I was given a lot of things. So it kind of explained it a little bit, but I didn't really know like the true definition, what the letters themselves meant. I didn't really know that at the time.
Okay.
But all I knew was it was given to students, to kids like me that were different at the time. I just knew that it was for us. It was for kids like me. That's all I knew.
Okay. I for those that are listening and not watching, Jayden, you used air quotes for different. And once again, the power of words. I love that the terms that we now use is neurodivergent. Do you personally prefer that terminology rather than someone saying that you're different or that you have Asperger's or that you are on the spectrum? Is there a terminology that you personally feel more comfortable with that comes from a place of dignity, that comes from a place of respect?
I would say I personally would gravitate more towards neurodivergent, that word more.
Okay.
But at the same time, I also understand that when people say Asperger's now, because I know it's not called that anymore, when people say that I'm, disabled, or say that, like refer to us in that sense, I know that it also kind of comes from a sense of ignorance in a way, not even necessarily their fault, but just ignorance in the sense that they really just are uneducated on what autism is, what an IEP is, what the disability is. So I think that's also kind of where it comes from too at some points. And there's also people that obviously do it maliciously as well. But I kind of keep in the back of my mind when people do kind of treat me different or act different towards me, they're not necessarily always trying to be malicious. It could really just come from a place of ignorance of they really just don't know how to address it, whatever it may be.
I love that. You were educating our listeners. You were educating our watchers. You were telling them about in the actions of your speech about kindness and treating people equally and fair. CarolAnn, I want to go to you because I know as someone who is also neurodivergent that you have wonderful things that you have done. Like when I met you, I met your service dog at the time, Shakespeare. I knew that you would wear lots of bracelets and watches so you knew where your hands and arms started. I knew that you had things of great comfort. And on your couch before we even started, you had your things that you want to squeeze. And it reminds me of a sweet little Punch with his sweet little plushy orangutan at the Japanese zoo. So I love that there's wonderful things that you personally do for your coping. I know that Nyla is right next to you, and I know when you left the screen, you were just getting a little love from your service dog. So can you tell those that are listening and watching why you do some of the things for you to feel that it's self-regulating, that it's your own personal way of self-care, and it's a way for you to reposition? Can you share with those that are watching and listening some of the things that you do that allow you to be in a better place?
How long do we have? Well, first off, there was nothing when I was a child, a teenager, and a young adult. There was nothing. There was severe autism, and because I could talk and make a bowl of cereal with milk in it for dinner, that I was not that bad. So I actually got kind of reverse discrimination in that people would say, well, you really shouldn't take up disability rights time. It wasn't. I found out early on when I was too many thoughts. I used to ride motorcycles. I was a biker chick, right? And as a biker chick, I wore my helmet. I was a good doobie. And I also wore very heavy shoes. And I noticed when I wore my biker boots that I knew where my feet were. And I knew where I was walking to. Whereas when I'm barefoot, unless I step on something sharp, I don't have that conscious connection. So that was actually to put things on my feet. I wore weighted and I was a scuba diver. So I would use diving weights on my ankles and my wrists to help me do proprioceptor. Where am I in space? How big is my aura for, I can't think that fast right now. So aura is what we've got. Where do I end and other people begin? And so those weights on my ankles and my feet were my first real accommodation that I came up with. And all my accommodations I came up with on my own. I would wear, I don't today because I had my fingernails done. Aren't they pretty? I wear 2 rings on this hand and 1 ring on this hand. Often I only have 1 bracelet, but I often wear 3 or 4 to tell my right hand. That's my dominant hand, supposedly. But for much of my youth, I was ambidextrous. I would switch hands, and teachers would get so mad at me. Miss CarolAnn, pick a hand and use it. And they'd get mad at me because I could write my name and anything else with both hands. And that's not right, according to them. So much of my adult life, once I got out of school and away from academia, I went into a cult for a couple of years. Oh, well, at least I felt like I belonged until I didn't. And then in a short amount of time, I met Chris. He also rode motorcycles and he also did scuba diving. So obviously we were meant to be together. And so we were. And it's been 43 years together, and that still surprises me a lot. Every once in a while, I get all sorts of, I don't know, I don't think it's depressed necessarily, but contemplative in a dark way. And I ask myself, are you still like okay with being with me? And he says, well, yeah, where else would I be, you know? Um, he's in St. Louis burying his mother who died a couple months ago. So, you know, it's just like, and then I found that if I wore heavy earrings, oh, look, I know where my head is. I can turn left and right. All of these things were self-discoveries. Wearing clothes a certain way, colors. Oh, God, colors had, I mean, most of my 20s and even later, I wore all black. I just wore all black. Occasionally all red, but that was towards Christmas. But colors had to match, fabrics had to have, not so much anymore because I get tired of wasting time. There's too much to do, too much to explore, too many places to go to always be worried about, is this the same color blue as my pants? And am I wearing my blue shoes or my pink shoes because that's a complementary color? You know, I make too many decisions. It's overwhelming. Um,
Oh, I want to
it's
say,
overwhelming, Erin.
no, can I just, I want to give you some soothing. One of our beautiful Freedom Writer teachers, Angelica, we call her Queen. We just posted on the screen, I love her with an exclamation point. 2 exclamation points to be exact. We just got a comment in the chat room from your dear friend, Dan Sackheim, who works with the California Department of Education. He said, and I quote, I am still learning about being among the neurodivergent in strengths and challenges. And I love when you have come to Freedom Writer symposiums that both Henry Wright and Dan Sackheim chose you, the perfect trifecta, to be their roommate. And as he's saying on the screen right now, that you bonded when you met in the Freedom Writer family. CarolAnn, what gives me great strength to share with Nancy is you found love. You found unconditional love. Jayden, you just got married. You too have found unconditional love. So Nancy, knowing that your beautiful daughter has found a boyfriend, does it give you a little bit of like a breath to say, these 2 wonderful colleagues of mine found people that love them in their authentic self?
Absolutely. I mean, that's all they want to be is, I don't want to say normal, typical. They want to be typical. They want to be loved. They want to have friends. They want to go out. They don't want to isolate. So yeah, absolutely. It makes me happy to know that this can happen for Brianna also. Absolutely.
While CarolAnn was talking about the weighted boots, Jayden, or when she was talking about having things like bracelets and watches to know where her hands and earrings on her ears, is there anything that you have ever either worn or wish that you did? As CarolAnn said, she struggled with colors. You know, is this blue matching this blue? So tell me some of the things that are either similar or different in your journey with CarolAnn. Is there anything that you've either put on your body or wish that you did to help you throughout the day?
That's actually perfect. To kind of mirror the way that she would have to remind herself, I would have to kind of wear some personal things for me to kind of help calm me down in certain situations or to keep me level-headed. I used to have a lot more bracelets myself too. I only have this one because I got it 10 years ago, actually, at St. Jude, Memphis. And I believe this one, a friend gave it to me. The paint kind of washed off of it over the years, but I used to have a lot more, but I would always fidget with them. I always like to have something to fidget with most of the time, just to kind of keep my hands, have something for my hands, or just to help, again, to keep me calm and have something for me to do when there's not anything for me to do, whatever it may be.
And I want to say specifically to you, Jayden, and you, CarolAnn, being on a computer live has got to be anxiety producing. It's scary for me. And you would think that I would get used to it because I'm an educator. But I want to say I'm so respectful and grateful and a heartfelt thank you for you to be here. So if you need to give a little snuggle to your service dog, CarolAnn, do so. If you need to touch your bracelets, please do so, Jayden. And I just want you guys to always feel that you're in a safe space. So what is it like when you feel when you're not in a safe space? Have you ever felt in a place where you don't have that thing to touch or that person to embrace or that community around you? Where are places that might feel chaotic and unsafe for you? I'll start with you, CarolAnn. Is there any place that you just, when you look around, is traveling difficult or are crowded rooms difficult?
In rooms, I've learned to think like a snowplow in the Antarctic or something, that they have the plow on the front that's pointed and you just go through the snow. And that's how I go through crowded rooms. I just make a space. Walmart is pretty frightening on a regular basis, between the flickering of the fluorescent lights and the noises of people and shopping carts. And it's funny, somebody said, "Oh, that baby's crying, tell him to be quiet, CarolAnn's here." I said, "No, the baby's normal. Babies crying are normal. That I can deal with. It's, Mom, can I have $20? Mom, can I go do this? Mom, oh, honey, don't do that." Or they're arguing. People are arguing in public. I'm with Mr. Rogers. We need more kindness. Walmart is one of the saddest places on earth for me. It's not just the physical stuff that goes on, but it's the energy of people there. With the exception of Henry, he was a greeter at the Walmart there in Brunswick, in Georgia. And I would deliberately go into that Walmart when I was traveling and get a Henry hug and then go back on my way. But loud, I love trains, but train stations are awful. I love being on an airplane, but airports can be, because they make the ceiling so high and things are so wide that it's hard. There were times when I traveled to Long Beach. I was going to say Longmont, Colorado, but that's wrong place. And I'd be in an airport, and Shakespeare and I would just stand up against the wall waiting for somebody because he was cute. So I always had somebody would come up and say, "Can I touch your dog? Can I pet your dog?" And part of me's going like, "Oh my God, oh my God. Yes, if you tell me where gate C is." And so Shakespeare became more than just an immediate support. He was a social connection with other people that helped me navigate the world. And the very first time I came in LAX, is that the LAX?
Yes.
Of all the people who came out right behind me was Zach Chase. And I don't know how he recognized me. I guess it was Shakespeare, but everyone with I don't have an exception to this. Everyone from Freedom Riders has made me feel safe. And I don't know how you guys do that. I don't know how you guys do that. I don't. And if it embarrasses you, well, so be it. But I've watched you guys. I've watched you guys on podcasts and film clips and old films and stuff. And I'm just like, and Dan too. Hi Dan. You know, it's just like, have you ever watched Dan Sackham just like all of a sudden he's focused on one person and he's talking like they've been best friends forever, and I don't know how he does that. Henry the same way, only different, but all you all, I feel safe. And that's actually, except for the past 2 years, I've become a monk, a hermit. This is my hermitage, my dog, my cat, my husband, and my floofs. Yeah, you know, that it is so underrated in schools, in churches, in businesses, having people feel safe, because that's a stepping stone. I'm losing words. Safe is a stepping stone to hope.
Well, I'm going to give you some words. Sarah Capistran is one of my original Freedom Writers. She has been feverishly typing in the chat room that not only as an original Freedom Writer, we always in caps try to create a safe space, but she also has a son who has been diagnosed to be on the spectrum. And I think that what I tried to do, and I'm still trying to do, is to lead with love. I'm sad that my brethren in every class in every school doesn't always lead with love, but I think that we try. And I want to read you, the three of you, something we just got from the chat room. It's from somebody by the name of Jody Truman. She wrote, "My brother will be 50, and he grew up in a life skills classroom. No one knew how smart he was, because behavior masks his intelligence. He has the Bible memorized. It blows me away. He plays piano and guitar by ear." So,
Wow.
I know. I want to ask you, Jayden, and then I'm going to come to you, Nancy. CarolAnn talked about the vastness of spaces. Take a Walmart, not just, she could hear every conversation. So there might be someone right in front of her, but she could hear someone to the left, the right, behind her. That overstimulation with the echoing of ceilings and the flickering of lights. Jody just put on the screen, she too finds Walmart to be hard. Jody said that she too has ADHD. So I want to ask you, Jayden, is do you ever feel in spaces as CarolAnn does, overstimulated? And sometimes with that overstimulation, does it make you go within? I love the image of CarolAnn at an airport. I think you're pretty cute, CarolAnn. So I suspect that maybe Shakespeare was the first thing they saw, but you're pretty cute. Maybe you were a dynamic duo, and both of you were so delicious that they had to stop and say hello and ultimately give you directions. But for you, Jayden, are there things that some places like CarolAnn just mentioned, like a Walmart, or was when you were a college student, was there anything that felt overwhelming to you because there was too much stimulation?
Well, it's actually perfect that she brought that up, because it kind of perfectly demonstrates how different everyone's autism can be, and how it can be different for every single individual, and for their strengths, for their comfortabilities, for what makes them comfortable. So my biggest anxieties, like when it comes to the word you just said, overstimulation. My biggest overstimulation, it doesn't come from strangers. I really don't mind strangers that much. It actually comes from people that I know, whether it be my friends, family, or people that I see in passing, like in class or whatever it may be. My overstimulation mainly comes from those dynamics, mainly because in my head, I'm constantly trying to mask myself, mask my appearance. And when I say mask, every autistic person is going to understand me when I say mask. Like, kind of presenting yourself in the normal way just so you can get through whatever it is. So in my head, I'm always constantly doing that with most of my friends and family to some degree. And when I'm with strangers, in a way, I can kind of more so just kind of self listen to my music, listen to my audiobooks, whatever it may be. And that's the beauty of autism. I actually like going to Walmart because it kind of, in a way, gives me some alone time so I can really be to myself, so I can have my butt in, so I can like do shopping, so I can walk around. And that's like the thing about autism, is that it works differently for everybody, and every perspective, every anxiety that it may bring is valid. So her anxiety of going to Walmart and hearing all of the different conversations, while it may not bother me, it's perfectly valid to bother Carol. It's perfectly valid for it to bother anybody else. It's perfectly valid to, bo- to bother CarolAnn. It's perfectly valid, and that's the thing
Mm,
about it.
I love that. And I want to point out again, you used your air quotes for normal. And so I love that we're gonna choose our words that are celebratory in this safe space, that are not loaded with labels. You taught me that, Carol Ann, when we worked on a project for Scholastic Publishing House, and you got to edit Temple Grandin's piece. It was a biography that was being written to celebrate her. And there was such righteous indignation when you did not like that the authors, who were not neurodivergent, were using words like disability and handicapped. And I remember you writing back and scathing, and I went all the way to the top. And I said, we will not participate in this project unless you change these very words. And they changed those very words. And I thank you, CarolAnn, for doing that. You allowed people in the publishing world to rewrite, to think differently, to speak truth to power. I thank you for that. And that publishing of the On the Record series was so well received. But I loved that in your righteous indignation, we could go back and look at the power of words. So with the power of words, my friend Nancy, you attract sisters. Some of your sisters from other misters are in this very call now. You also attract children and daughters. So in Freedom Rider World, we know that Sue Ellen Alpazar, Freedom Rider extraordinaire, is your adopted family member.
Yes, she is.
She made a little video with a direct question, and I want you to see your sweet daughter on the screen with her question, Sue Ellen, and then I want to see if you could answer her question, knowing that Sue Ellen, after meeting CarolAnn, started analyzing if she had some tendencies to be on the autism spectrum. So let's check out your newly minted daughter, Sue Ellen, and then on the other side of her question, I'd love for you to answer it.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Sue Ellen. I'm a Freedom Rider, and I have a question. In light of our current leaders of our country, such as Donald Trump and Robert Kennedy Jr., have made comments about non-divergent people. With that in mind, I wanted to know what kind of conversations you've had that you found most helpful to affirm either yourself or your child's value or potential when they hear harmful and language like that just stunts them.
Ooh, so Nancy, Sue Ellen is on her social media feeds every day. Like CarolAnn, there's a lot of righteous indignation. It will affect her whole mood. Whatever is happening in the world when it is upside down. And she's a little hot. She's a little hot about situations right now, about specifically the governor of California, our governor, Gavin Newsom, wrote a book exposing his dyslexia and him being criticized. You know Sue Ellen well. How would you respond to her question to you?
Wow, that's a loaded question, but yeah, unfortunately, some of our leaders don't see what we see with people who are neurodiverse. And how you explain this to a child is, I guess, you keep it neutral and reassuring, letting them know that, our job is to help our communities work better. And just talk about fairness and inclusion and being kind, and explaining that sometimes that what leaders say do affect what schools and healthcare and support services do come out, but we have other leaders who don't feel the same way.
That was very diplomatic. I love that. You work in an environment with the youth that is neurodivergent. You are in New York City, so I know that being a New Yorker, that you are in a community where you can have courageous conversations. But have you noticed that sometimes with laws and with politicians that it's difficult in your educational field?
Very much so. Within our own group and our own people, with the therapists, with the teachers, everyone has their own agenda. So it does become difficult having conversations with them. But I think the worst is when we hear about the budget cuts. Then everyone's kind of together at that. Let's not have these budget cuts. That did happen, are going to continue to happen.
I love that. Jayden, I want to ask you a specific question that another freedom rider who was diagnosed with ADD as a young man. CarolAnn, you've been very inspirational to Ian as well, freedom rider.
I love Ian.
Ian wanted to ask of you, are there any methods that you personally have used to improve your life despite all the challenges you might have faced with your diagnosis? So is there anything personal that you do, like CarolAnn said, with wearing those weighted shoes or those earrings? Are there any things that you do that kind of helps you along this journey?
I just try not to let my mistakes that I make, because obviously everyone makes mistakes, but we all kind of in a way feel like we make more mistakes than everybody else in a way subconsciously. Like we all kind of think, oh, my mistakes are more than their mistakes, so I really need to work on myself. But I would say one thing that definitely helps me, I try not to let those get over me and ruin my day, because there's 24 hours in the day, and if I have one really bad crappy hour, I'm not going to let it ruin the other 23. And that's something I'm really trying to learn myself, and kind of have that be something that just kind of comes second, that just kind of comes naturally. And that's not something I have to practice. That's not something I have to remind myself, like, hey, don't, like, I know they kind of gave you like a side eye or whatever it may be, or like like they kind of were unforgiving in a way for a simple mistake that anyone could make. But I just try to give yourself grace and just know that it's not the end of the world. Whatever it may be, whatever is stressing you that day, or whatever is bringing you some turmoil in that hour.
I
Yeah.
I love that you use the word grace. Nancy, speaking of grace, I know that you show up every day, and when I know you were on speed dial, you just had the worst winter. You guys had snow days. You were always on call, because you understand that you've got to create continuity and consistency for these beautiful kids who desperately need that continuity, that consistency, and that safe space. So what is something that you've learned that has helped in an environment where all of the folks that gather in your community are allies and advocates for making kids feel that we can come up with new words that don't need air quotes like normal or different? Or what are some of the things that you have created in this beautiful place that others can learn from and maybe replicate?
I think one of the most important parts is to know that each one of these neurodiverse people are so different, and you really do have to treat them differently, but the same. Even if they have siblings, you treat the siblings and that child the same, because they're still human, they're still an adult, and that's what they want. You do make those accommodations that you need to. Just a simple task like getting into the car can be complicated for a neurodiverse child. They want to sit in the same seat, the sibling doesn't. You have to be flexible is the biggest thing. Flexibility is predominant in our community. You have to be ready to change at a moment's notice because the child is having a meltdown. You have to be ready to leave the restaurant because your kid is throwing a temper tantrum. I mean, there have been times when I had to say, "Oh, pack my stuff to go. I'm leaving. Brianna's crying. Let's go." You really do have to be extremely flexible.
Can you do a shout out to your place of business, which is so exquisite? Because I really feel they need the accolades. It's such a unique
So
place.
I am the director of IT for a school called the Hagedorn Little Village School for Special Needs Children. And we've been in business about 53 years now, I want to say. It's a remarkable school, and Brianna attended that school, which is how I got involved with the school. That's where she got her first start, which was
And
amazing. She started there at 2.5 years.
tell our amazing audience what your beautiful Brianna is now doing as her career.
Brianna is actually a licensed special ed teacher, and she's actually teaching music for 2 kids with special needs. And she subs 2 days a week also. And she's loving her job. So she's giving back. It's kind of full circle.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
CarolAnn, I have loved watching you this entire, for those that are going to listen, they're not going to get the joy that I have seen. I know that you've had a retreat to the Batcave. I know that you're surrounded by things that make you safe. You have your dog. You went to the Batcave to get the kitty. You've got plushies. And yet I want to give you all of the accolades for being so transparent. This has got to be very hard because I'm on the other side of the country and you're just looking at me through a screen and hearing my voice, and you're doing beautifully. You're doing beautifully. So I want to ask you why, and I loved watching you disappear and bring something back. It's been so much fun to watch you. Tell people who are both watching and will listen later why you've had to retreat and go to your bat cave and bring something back with you. Why we, as Jayden said earlier, need to give people the grace to ground themselves, the grace to acclimate, the grace for you to feel that you are safe.
You just answered your own question.
I think you were putting it better than I did.
The thing is, I don't feel, Erin, and I have never felt that we're very far apart. I almost feel like I could say, well, this little molecule hits this molecule, hits this one, and it'll eventually hit a molecule in Long Beach, California. So we're connected. To me, I know we hardly talk for months at a time, and then all of a sudden there's an explosion of connection. But that explosion can happen because everything that's actually present. I've asked my husband if we could move to Long Beach, and he just looks at me with crossed eyes. Probably not going to happen at this point. But Chris understands. He understands this whole thing, this connection. If I were to say to him when he gets home tomorrow that Erin wants me to come to Evansville, Illinois, to a Freedom Rider thing and stuff, he would say, go for it. And I've tried to get him out to Freedom Rider teacher camp in the summer, and he won't go. He was a special ed teacher for like 20 years or so. And I don't know why he won't go. Maybe he feels he's coming in on my territory, but I don't own you, Erin. That's the best thing. That's the best thing about you, is nobody owns you. We all own you. That's a bad word that's not what I really mean, but we're all melded or molded, or if I such need, I don't know. But whoever generally comes into contact with you has to be a genuine person to continue. And that sense of being genuine makes it possible. Jayden was talking about masking. Oh my word, it's so hard to get rid of a mask once you have it in public. Mercy's sake, I don't mask around you. I had to stop at that very first one. We were in that front room and people were reading from their journals, and you had me read from my journal. Hi, Dan, wherever you may be. Okay. Go.
You know what, CarolAnn, I think it's so amazing with both you and Jayden. You both love acting. I love that you are now in Savannah and you've done between 20 and 30 student films for SCADA, which I
And that
love.
doesn't count community theater. I've done a lot of community theater
So I
too.
love that you act. Jayden, I know that you are exploring that as a potential career. So I love that both of you have found a way to express yourself. And maybe that's just an extension of another mask, whatever that character may be. I wanna end with something that I watched recently. I love RuPaul's Drag Race. Oh my goodness, give me an entire series of RuPaul, and it's my happy space. But he used to do something that I thought was really unique. He would oftentimes have the incredible characters that were participating on his show speak to their younger self. And it was always from a place of love. Maybe the love they didn't get in their journey, but as an adult looking back, being able to ask for what they wish they had, or ask for what they wanted at that school, or maybe in that home. I'd love to do that for specifically CarolAnn and Jayden, and then Nancy, I'm going to have yours be more universal for all of those kids that need to look in that mirror. So I want to start with you, Jayden, because you are the youngest of these elder states folks on your screen. If you could look at that younger picture of you, maybe in elementary school when you were escaping to books, the Diary of a Wimpy Kid series, what could you tell younger Jayden now that comes from a place of grace, comes from a place of dignity, comes from a place of pure self-love?
I would say just to don't feel bad with whatever you're doing, and to not feel bad with just being comfortable in a situation where you're not masking, just to not feel guilty, and just to not feel guilty about not being quote unquote normal.
Okay. CarolAnn, what would you tell your younger self?
Well, this isn't being snarky or oppositional, but I masked myself and tried to fit myself for so many decades into something I didn't understand and couldn't even interpret, that I've only become young in the past 5 or 6 years. So I am my younger self now. And I'm continually telling myself, Don't be guilty anymore. Don't feel guilty. Don't feel scared. But don't feel guilty. You are you, and they are they. And if we meet on a dark and snowy night, so be it. But I, I, I'm young now. I'm letting go of the guilt. I'm letting go of the robot me, and it's been a eclectic, hilarious journey. But I think guilt is actually worse than fear, because fear you can see. Fear often transmogrifies into anger. Anger you can see, but when it becomes invisible with guilt, that needs spiritual surgery to get it removed. And I'm fortunate to be with some few people. They're all over the country, but we're on Facebook together, and they monitor me. So when I get not morbid, but morose, sad, angry, somebody tiptoes on the Facebook and says, "Are you okay?" That's a recent thing for me to experience. Are you okay? A lot of times I have to say no, but just the fact that that was asked becomes a doorway to a different path, a different choice. So are you okay? No, I'm not right now. Yeah, but I will be. And that's because of the people. Well, I'll touch you on the nose. You're so cute. That have been in my life the past 8 or 10 years, no, 10 or 12 years, that have been consistently in my life, that don't care about my masks. They don't care about my degrees. They don't care about anything except, are you okay?
I want to say to you, CarolAnn, and to everyone that's watching now and listening later, let's take this as a homework assignment to check on those that we love more often. Jayden, for us to check on you more often. CarolAnn, to those that are announcing themselves. I love that they're very active in the chat room, but I think it's really important that both you specifically and those of us that have people in our lives that may ebb and flow, that we've just got to take that extra step to just check and see if they're okay. That's going to be my homework assignment for all of you that are watching and listening. For you, Nancy, CarolAnn, you have not experienced this yet. You will in the future. When Nancy comes to Long Beach to the Hotel Maya, there's a sacred space. It is 3210. It is a sacred room. And in that room, they call it Bible study. When someone comes and knocking on the door like a security officer, because people are inside and they're laughing and being silly and being kids, they call it Bible study. And that's what I'm going to use my air quotes, because it's a place that's very spiritual, because it's so organic and so fun and so silly, and all that is right with what some kids miss in their childhood. Some kids don't get to laugh with reckless abandon. Some kids don't get to dance where people aren't watching them. Some kids don't get to be unabashedly childlike. And I think, Nancy, you've created that in our Freedom Writer bubble. You've created that with the school that you work every day, and you've created that in your home. So as the mama bear spirit that has created that in our world, I'd love for you to speak to all of those kids who we have not met yet, who may need to listen and watch and know that there's someone out there that wants to know if they're okay.
So there's a part that doesn't get talked enough about, and that's the joy of raising someone who's neurodiverse. You come to appreciate your child's unique way of seeing the world, that deep focus on things that they love with honesty, creativity, the way they connect. It's so special. And I think every child has that, neurodiverse or not. But with the neurodiverse, moments like that seem small are not, they're big. A new word, a moment of eye contact, even just trying something new, that's all huge. It's about growth and resilience. And you learn to see the world through a lens that's more patient, more aware, and often more beautiful in its own way.
Social cues, Jayden. Nancy, that's a drop the mic moment. I hope you felt that in your soul, CarolAnn. I'm so proud of how you worded that. And the words that you used, Nancy, are the words that make this English teacher's spirit soar. Beautiful, unique, magic. All that is right with the world, all that is precious and untainted. So I wish that we all could go through the world seeing what you see. Your daughter is so very lucky. Those that you humbly serve are so very lucky. And I hope that we can all take away all of that beauty of those moments, just that simplicity of a look that's not simple, the joy that comes from it. So I want to end there. That beauty is what we have made, beauty is what we see, and hopefully beauty is what we can spread from having this conversation. I'm so honored that you guys took the time to be a part of this courageous conversation. I thank you, I love you, and I appreciate you being a part of our family. Thank you.
Thank you.
For all of you, we're going to turn this into a podcast, and I hope that you could listen, share, and take that home assignment very seriously. Reach out to someone that you hold dear and simply ask, are they okay? Call them, text them, show up at their house, and let them know you care. Thank you. Bye.